Lindsay, she's going to talk about empowerment. Lindsay Hume is a certified empowerment coach for women who have the desire to do and to be more. She helps women overcome fear, self-doubt, and people pleasing. That right there. I mean, again, I wish I could see everybody. I don't know if you try, that would be me, people pleaser. So if you have those tendencies, you're going to want to listen up. She helps you create a life that's authentic, that is filled with passion and purpose without feeling guilty. Lindsay's talk is so good, you guys. I suspect that you might be, again, like me, where you're a people pleaser. So get ready. Lindsay's going to explain why you people please. She's going to shine a light on that so that you can decide to keep it or change it. All right. Lindsay has a great gift for you after the summit too. She's got the Desire Blueprint. It's a deep dive into your life. It's really good.
Today, like Deb said, I'm going to talk about people pleasing and why I believe it's actually making you miserable, which is the total opposite of what we want, right? So I'm also going to talk about the real reasons why you are people pleasing. And you might be surprised to know that it really has very little to do with you and your personality. And then we're going to talk about what you can do instead that is much more effective and will greatly reduce, if you practice it, the amount of guilt and resentment that you experience in your life. Okay, so let's get started. What is people pleasing? And I had some of my own definitions, but I wanted to look some up and see what the internet said. They're all very similar, but there was one article in Psychology Today that really resonated with me. And so I wanted to share it with you. People pleasing is the underlying urge to make others happy and to be positively regarded. And I think that this resonated with me because, one, it aligns to what other women, and that when I say other women, I mean people in my life, my friends, my family, as well as my clients have shared with me, right, and have experienced. And two, it aligns also to my research and understanding of how we naturally functions as humans. So let's start with what I hear from my clients and what I've experienced in my own life. So based on both of these, I have narrowed down women's reasons for people pleasing to two things. And the first one is that we are afraid that we will let someone down or upset them. So in other words, we have this desire to make other people feel good and to like us, right? So we say yes to things that we don't want to say yes to because we are worried about how it will make the other person feel. And then, of course, what they're going to think of us. The second one is we feel guilty or selfish for saying no. And this is a huge one with women that I hear all the time and that I feel in my own life. This comes from a place of believing that we should do something or the idea that it's the right thing to do. So even when we don't want to, you have thoughts like, I should help them. I should attend their party. I should go to the restaurant that they like, and so on and so forth. In other words, we really believe that people pleasing makes us a good person, right? And saying no makes us a bad person. Okay, but there are two important things that I want you to know about these reasons. And first, it's like I said before, they have very little to do with you, right? And who you are, the type of person you are. And they're actually due in large part to biological survival mechanisms and the way we've been socialized. So this means that the reasons that we have for people pleasing are really scientifically flawed and outdated, right? So our belief about it is outdated. So let me explain a little bit more about that. There are two important reasons, really, the real reasons why you're people pleasing. And the first one is this biological mechanism for survival. So your brain was developed or trained to keep you alive, right? That is its main purpose. This means that it's constantly scanning your environment and surroundings and analyzing how safe you are, right? So if you think back to like the caveman days, we survived in tribes. So it was very, very important that other people like us. If they didn't, right, if we weren't contributing in a way that was pleasing to the tribe, they could reject us and we literally could die, right, on our own out there in the world without other people to help us survive. Now, the brain still thinks this is true, right? So it has not evolved. And so even though saying no to someone will not result in death, right, anymore, you may feel really awful doing it because the brain will be sending you all kinds of signals that it's a bad idea. Okay, so that's first. That's your biological survival. Second, as women, we're typically socialized right from birth that we should take care of others, right, and put their needs before our own. We've been given that message that a good friend, a good wife, a good mother, all of these things, that we do things for other people, right? That makes us good. And historically, also doing good things for people and making other people happy was a requirement to actually stay safe. So if you think about how we used to depend on others, typically men, right, in our society to provide for us because, for example, there was a time when we legally couldn't make money, right? We were not allowed to make money. So our safety in history has depended on us keeping other people happy in exchange for money, food, and shelter. Okay, so we're socialized. And finally, I just want to say, as humans, we are typically socialized. So not just women, but as humans in general, we are typically socialized to believe that we are responsible for how other people feel, right? And vice versa. So we are taught that our actions and the words we say make other people feel things, whether that be happy, sad, angry, love. And so we feel compelled to act in ways that we think will make other people feel good. So all this to say, it's totally normal behavior from a social and biological point of view to people please, right? It's nothing to feel bad about. It's not unique to you. You don't have some special gene, or a broken piece of you that needs to be fixed. You're not weak. You're not a pushover, any of these things. This is literally how we've all been designed. So let's talk about the outdated and flawed scientific reasons that we just talked about. Let's get into them a little bit more. The biological and social reasons for people pleasing actually have no more relevance. They're no longer relevant. And in some cases, like I said, are scientifically flawed based on how the human brain actually works. So for starters, we no longer need a tribe, right? So in fact, we can survive quite happily on our own as a single person in the modern world. Now, that's not to say that we still don't have the need and desire to belong, right? And that social connections, like Aida said in her presentation, are very important. However, we are not dependent in terms of life or death on other people. Also, as women, we have more independence and autonomy than we ever have had in history. And we have the ability through intentional practice, right, through thought work, managing our mindset, to remove outdated beliefs, right, to actually clean them out and replace them with ones that actually serve us. Finally, we now know that through the study of the human brain, our words and actions are not what make other people feel emotions. It's impossible for us to transmit an emotion back and forth between two humans, okay? What they feel, and this is really important to hear and grasp, what someone feels is based on their interpretation, right, of our words and actions. And that interpretation is not controlled by you. Okay, that is a function of their upbringing, their socialization, their core beliefs about the world, all of these different things. And if you needed any more, I guess, proof that people pleasing is ineffective, right? It also makes us miserable, which I know is very counterintuitive to why we're doing it. When we believe that people pleasing makes us a good person, right, it leads us to doing things that we either don't want to do or aren't in alignment with what is important to us, right? So you are essentially rejecting yourself, okay, and your needs in exchange for someone else's. And in my experience, it almost always leads to anger and resentment, especially because we can't control how they feel about what we do, right? So you may do something thinking that it's going to make somebody happy, and it doesn't, right? And then that can lead to even more like anger and resentment, okay? So if you think about it, it's really kind of crazy, right? That the behavior that we think is strengthening our relationships, making people think good things about us, is actually slowly destroying them, okay? So I just want to talk about what we can do instead. So first, start by normalizing this, right? We've talked about how the brain is built for safety, right? And how it's going to send red flags when you try to do something that it thinks will get you rejected from the tribe. We know that we're socialized, especially as women, to make others happy and comfortable, right? And now we also know that our actions and our words don't actually make someone feel anything, okay? So normalize the behavior. It's not about you. It's not something that needs to be fixed or that is inherently wrong with you. It's simply outdated mechanism for survival, right? So second, just practice recognizing when it's your what we call primitive brain, like that old brain that is in survival mode. Practice recognizing when that is talking to you, right? And when it is your authentic self. And what I mean by that, or a little trick to doing this, is notice when you are making decisions out of fear, like fear of letting someone down, fear of causing a confrontation or making them upset, fear of not being liked, right? This is a true signal that this is your primitive brain, your biological instinct kicking in to keep you safe. Okay, it is never, ever generated by your authentic self, ever. The authentic self has no fear. And I guess in this way, you can be thankful that we have this biological drive to stay safe, because without it, without the primitive side of the brain, we would actually die, right? Our authentic self does not feel fear, okay? So it's a good thing to have this, and you want it to be there when you require it, but you want to recognize when it's not useful for you, right? And ideally, in my mind, right, this primitive side of the brain would evolve to tell the difference between somebody not liking us and someone chasing us in a dark alley with a knife, right? But for now, you need to use your more developed, I guess, modern brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, to decide, right? To make a decision about what it is you want. So once you become aware that you're making some decisions, you're people pleasing out of fear or out of a desire, right, to keep other people happy, try to tap into what you want and why you want it, right? And then honestly and lovingly share your decision with the other person. I'm not saying this will be easy, right? It's very simple, but it's not going to be easy in the beginning, right? Because it will bring up like a lot of fear and a lot of anxiousness for a lot of us, and that's okay. Just remember, it's never what you say or do that makes someone else feel anything. It's always their interpretation of your words. And so if you share from a loving, authentic place your decision, that is the best you can ever ask of yourself. And the other person, right, may interpret it any way they like, but hopefully, if it's coming from a place of love and authenticity, they will also genuinely feel that. And that will change the dynamic that you have versus saying yes to something that you really don't want. Even when you're saying yes, when it's coming from an energy of like misalignment, resentment, not wanting, that is the energy that is showing up. Okay. And it takes a toll on the relationship. So decide what it is you really want, and then lovingly and authentically like share with the other person in your life. Okay. Honestly, I think that rejecting our own needs, right, and our own desires is a losing game. I've felt it in my own life, right? This resentment, this anger, and it's always the opposite of what I want. And so instead, I offer you this. What if putting your needs and wants at the top of the priority list was good for everybody in your life, right? Yourself, your partner, your parents, your friends, your children. What if it was good for everybody? I'll give you an example. Like the way I see it, it does no good to stay in a job that you hate, right? While lying to yourself and your boss and your colleagues, even if you're still performing well, right? It's likely impacting how you show up in your relationships at work and at home. Because when we're doing work that sucks the very life out of us, as one example, we have very little to give to other people, right? Very little to give ourselves and have self-care. Okay, so it causes us, at least in my experience, when it gets out of hand, to literally hate ourselves, right? Because we aren't living from a place of authenticity. We aren't being honest with ourselves. And that's one of the most depressing and lonely places I've ever been. So when we make the decision to say no to something that isn't for us or that we don't want to do, I believe it's the greatest act, right, of love and kindness, right? There's no guilt there. This practice of staying true to yourself and then lovingly sharing with others where you are at can almost reduce resentment, fully in your life, and takes away so much of our guilt, okay? Because you know you can't control how they feel based on your actions and your words. And you know that you're not being selfish. You're honoring yourself and your relationships, right? You're honoring this other person. You're saying, I love you enough. I care about this relationship enough to really share my authentic self and what it is that I want. So what if you reframed people pleasing, right, as just that, not honoring yourself and your relationships? I want you to think about how that would change the decisions you make on a day-to-day basis. And what if you saw it as not being honest with yourself and others? I think I've got a few minutes, Deb, and I know I wanted to share this story that I'll just leave you with this example directly from my life that I have shared out there that was kind of a defining moment for me in terms of people pleasing, which I didn't realize that I had been doing all my life, because I am a person that will stand up for herself and that often has been known for saying what nobody else will. And yet I discovered that in my own life, in my private and personal life, I was people pleasing constantly. And the story that really made me realize this was my husband and I, we have a dog. We have had him for over 9 years. And it's, warning, if you're a dog lover, you may want to plug your ears. But it's like, I just never really, really liked him. I can't explain it because I've had other dogs in my life that I've loved, but him and I we don't vibe. And I've struggled with it for 9 years. And rather than in the beginning, when my husband kept saying, if you're not happy with him, if you're not happy, let's rehome him, right? And I kept saying no. It's like, no, because I didn't want to make my husband unhappy, and no, because I'd made a commitment and I needed to stick to it. And so I've done this for 9 years, and it really hasn't been good for anybody, right? I'm constantly getting upset with the things, the hair in the house and the water that's all over the floor from him drinking and all of these different things, right? And it's constantly being brought to my relationship with my husband. And quite frankly, for the poor dog too, can probably feel it. So fast forward, right? I got him 9 years ago, bring us pretty much up to speed. Like currently I've got a 4-year-old. It's a rainy day. Me and my husband decide we're going to take him to pet stores just to go hang out and have something to do, which was a terrible idea because everybody knows that if you look at a puppy, you're going to buy said puppy, which is what we ended up doing. This is how I felt. I felt like I'd been talked into it again. I now take responsibility for it and know that it was 100%, my decision, but I felt like I got talked into it again. It'll be so good for Rocky, who's my 4-year-old son. He'll get so much fun. Our other dog, Blue's too old to really play with him. We'll teach him responsibility. And my husband just loved this other dog. He wanted it so badly. So I said yes. And as the days go on, we've got this new puppy in our home. It's like, I still don't want it, right? I don't want to take care of the puppy. I don't want to walk it. I know that this is just the puppy stage, but I also have the foresight, like I have the experience with our previous dog to know this isn't what I want. And I've even said it prior, right? I will never have another dog again. That's it for me. And yet I gave in because I wanted my 4-year-old and I wanted my husband to be happy. And it brought me back to the moment with our first dog when my husband said, if you're not happy with him, rehome him. And I decided in that moment that that was what I was going to do. And I went to my husband and I told him, like, I'm going to rehome this dog. You've offered this as an opportunity to me before. I'm taking it now. It might be 10 years later. And I found a fantastic home for him. She has another dog. She had just lost 2 dogs and so was really, really looking to fill a space in her home. She's retired. So this, you guys, the dog is living, a dog's best life. I explained it to my 4-year-old who very nonchalantly said, okay, mommy, no problem. He hasn't talked about it a day since. And my husband and I have less tension between us because I'm not home with a dog every day that I don't want to take care of. And I'm not doing something just to make him and my son happy at the expense of my own needs and my own desires. And it was this moment when I said, what if people pleasing has actually been bad for my relationship? And what if not people pleasing is actually the thing I need to do? And I've started to do more and more of it. I speak up now when my husband says, where do you want to go for lunch? I tell him, right? And he loves that. I stopped doing things that I don't want to do. I've been watching football for 9 years. I hate it. I stopped. I just said, this is not for me, and it actually has made our relationship better because I feel like I can be open and honest and he finally knows what to do to make me happy, right? So with that said, I just wanted to share that personal story because I really do think that people pleasing could be the reason you are struggling in parts of your life with resentment and anger. So I'm going to leave you with that today. I know we've only got a couple minutes left. If you would like to talk more about this, you can reach out to me. My email address is up there. You can go to my website at lindsayhume.com and hit the contact button. I love to talk to people about this topic and so many others. And as Deb said, you'll be getting my freebie in the email shortly. That is my desire blueprint where you can design the life of your dreams. So yeah, thank you, Deb. Thank you, everybody. This has been fun.
Stick around. Let me ask you a couple of questions. That was so good. I mean, honestly, maybe I'm the only one who was like raising my hand, people pleaser, guilty here. And I think that story, I appreciate so much that you shared that story because I think that's a perfect example that so many people can really relate to. So would you tell me about somebody who is trying to learn how to not people please? Kind of what's going to come up for them, do you think? I mean, in your experience?
Yeah. Well, I think what's going to come up is the old stories, right? Like that I should it's going to be very difficult for some people to really believe that this is a better option, right? Because there's so many shoulds behind it. And especially for women, we really, really believe and have been taught that that is what makes us good. So you're going to have a lot of pushback, right? From this primitive brain that's like, no, you should keep people happy. You're also probably going to experience guilt, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be the starting point, is there's going to be guilt there. But I promise, like, once you start to have open conversations with people and see how they respond, and you start living a more kind of authentic life because you're saying no to things you don't want and yes to things that you are, the guilt will dissipate because you will just know it's the best thing for you and the person across from you.
Yeah. And the resentment, you brought that up. I mean, coaching is so beautiful because we learn so much about ourselves, which is what this whole summit is about, is to really bring people awareness if they don't know about coaching. But when you notice something like people pleasing and you're aware of it, and you, maybe for me, I had the feeling of resentment, and it was like, wait, why am I resenting something? And then you go backwards and it's like, oh, either somebody's not behaving the way that I want them to because I did one thing, it really is fascinating.
Yeah. And I just want to say with the resentment thing, so it's especially in a relationship, like maybe a very close friendship or a romantic relationship. If we just use my example of football, for example, it's like, yes, of course, I'm resentful towards my husband because I've been watching this stupid game for almost a decade that I don't want to watch. So when you share that with him, like, one, I had to take it a little easy on him, right? Because they think you've been doing something for 10 years that you really like, and they can be in a bit of shock. But two, you can ask them to do something, whether that be, hey, can we trade every other Sunday for football for something that I enjoy? Or, and what I think is a better practice, and it kind of strengthens your skill in doing this, is to take that responsibility on yourself. So it'd be like, I want you to know that this isn't something I enjoy, right? I'm not going to be doing it anymore. However, you still get to do it. And on Sundays when you watch football, I'm going to go shopping, or I'm going to do something else. And to find that thing for yourself and not make it the responsibility of the other person to kind of ease that for you.
Fill the gap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to tie back in empowerment coaching and people pleasing. So if you stop people pleasing, you want to kind of put the connection there.
Yeah. If you stop people pleasing, then you are living more in alignment with who you are, who you want to be, which is empowerment. And two, you're making decisions about your life based on, again, who you are and what you want. And empowerment, there's many parts to it, but one of the big parts is powerful decision making, right? Being the owner of your own life and directing what it is you want to spend your time on and what you value. So people pleasing is the opposite of being empowered.
So
you're giving all your power away when you people please.
So good. Wow. Thank you, Lindsay. Thanks so much.